Hello, welcome to the Garden Path with me, Brett Price. Today's subject is something very near and dear to my heart. I love plants, so I use as many plants as I can in a garden. And I find that a layer in most landscapes that's missing is the ground layer. And I used to put down a lot of mulch for my clients every spring. And I was always trying to figure out like ways I could lessen the amount of mulch, and that ended up being plugs, landscape plugs of different ground covers. So I'm going to talk about how I view mulch and how I hope that the discussion changes and we start to think about using more plants every spring instead of just mindlessly throwing down mulch. So, all right. So the reason we use hardwood mulch or bark mulch is, and most people know this, it's to suppress weeds and then also to retain moisture. So we're just kind of trying to slow this down here, um, and that's the vision. Unfortunately, and I'm sure no matter who sees this video, where you live, whatever municipality, you see the municipal workers throwing down cubic yards and yards of mulch every year without fail. I mean, I guess nowadays some practices are evolving and you'll see more green infrastructure, but I think it's still very common in most landscapes to only think about mulching every spring instead of adding plants, which is a shame because it really, I think it's a pretty limited vision for the future of the landscapes. To me, a more hopeful vision and more interesting vision is one where we continuously add plants to the garden. So that's continuous improvement instead of just keeping a practice going because our grandpa did it, basically, is the reason. There's not. So that's what I hope changes because plants can do what mulch does and they do it better because they keep coming back year after year. Maybe not forever. Obviously, nothing's forever, but plants come back a lot longer than mulch. Mulch starts to break down the same season you apply it, where plants will fill out over the years, fill out and fill in, and you'll get this layering effect. So this little planting saved me hours in this bed every spring. I have another photo where these viburnum are blooming, so it's like this bright white bloom with the yellow. That's and I would argue that we're going to keep using mulch as a tool for new plantings. That's where I think it makes the most sense. And so it's really good for that. I still use it for that. I feel like there should be more plants even in this bed. But yeah, I think this is year 2. You see, you can't really see the ground anymore except down here where I have a flag for a plant to be placed. So that's why we should use it. But the idea is that if we keep planting every year, we'll have to use less and less. So, and I'll show you some of the plants I use shortly. I think a great way to think about plantings is in layers. It's an idea I learned about in this book right here. I don't know if you've read it, but highly recommended. And I found that most landscapes are actually missing this ground cover layer, which is a shame because it leaves you with like a 66% of a planting, and that's the default everywhere, and that's the long-term vision. We just sort of stop there, and I found that kind of sad. So with my clients, I chose to go beyond that. I'm not going to read out these reasons. I'll leave this here for you to pause, but just this is some of the reasons I think maybe not planting out the ground layer is so commonplace. This is why we do a lot of things, custom. So I'm going to show you some of the plants I use and some of my plantings, examples of functional plantings where I really consider that ground layer. This is Tiarella Elizabeth Oliver. Another example of that. It's a wonderful geranium here. Very elegant, like light pink flower. You could see how weed suppressive that would be. This is one of my favorite bee balms. It has amazingly fragrant foliage with this deep maroon red. It's pretty short. It only gets about 15, 18 inches. Really nice for the front of the border. And I think of it as a ground cover mostly. The flower's kind of like a bonus, but then it has this foliage that's still doing work after the bloom. It's an excellent geranium. It blooms for months up here in Maine. This is another plant. It's not shown in bloom, but just to get an idea of how effective that would be at retaining moisture and suppressing weeds. It has a great little blue flower in the springtime. A nice yellow fall color. This is an excellent plant. You can plant this in shade, full sun. It likes kind of sandy soil from what I've seen. So, it's a cute little sedge here. More of that bee balm. So this is an example of where I think ecological landscaping can make a big impact. Is this bed? This bed was 30 foot by about 10, I think, kind of like on the woodland edge. And the landscaping company that used to take care of it, they would throw like 10, 15 yards of mulch on it every year instead of planting. So as soon as I started taking care of this bed, I was like, I need to put something in here that's really going to spread fast. So, and Larry Weiner recommended this plant. He said, I vaguely remember him saying he like built his career off using this plant. And yeah, you saw it in the viburnum bed earlier in the presentation, and you can see how there's these little baby plants down here because it spreads really well by seed. So once I put this in this bed, I basically didn't have to mulch after that. So just think about the compounding effects of that over time. Even if we just got down half of the bark mulch we used, that's so many less trucks on the road, so many more plants. And I have an analogy I've been thinking of lately about how to think about this. So we call garden beds, or areas that we plant in our landscapes, garden beds. And when you go to bed, you take a blanket, right? So when I think about mulch and how it breaks down, I mean, almost immediately after you start using it, that's like giving that little guy this blanket. So wouldn't you want to give him this instead? That's plants. Much more permanent, comfy blanket. So yeah, just a few of the benefits. And then I'll tell you about how I mulch. So typically for a new planting, I'll put down 1.5 to 2 inches. And I'm planting so densely because I'm adding those ground covers that it's not really feasible to bring a wheelbarrow into the bed. So I end up using, I think 5-gallon buckets make a really good solution. So I'll put like 3 or 4 of those in a big wheelbarrow and then fill those up. And then I can just walk them into the bed. And they're easy to manage, and they allow you to like kind of dump the bucket very precisely around plants. So you're not like burying plants. So that's a great method. And then each spring you can chop up plants, and that adds free mulch. Just chop up the plants into little 3-4 inch sections. And you can leave some leaves too. Just kind of break them up a little bit. Don't let them pile up for multiple years, because they can smother kind of more dainty perennials. But so yeah, that's it. I think thinking about the beauty blanket, or living mulch idea, is something we need to be talking about more, and a practice that needs to be more widespread for all those reasons I mentioned. So the plan is just pick one small area so it's not overwhelming. Take a plant you're interested in trying out and just plant 3 to 5 of them. And I mean, obviously you can be more ambitious than that, but you'll notice if you just keep doing that every year, your garden's going to start filling out. You can utilize some of that 33% of the ground layer, and then you get a nice full garden that's beautiful and functional. You should notice less need to weed, far fewer weeds. You end up being able to take care of an area much faster. Like, weeds will still find their way in there, but you'll be able to kind of zip through an area in 10-15 minutes. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with everyone, and hopefully we can keep this discussion going and get these practices changed. So see you in the next one.